Welcome. It's a pleasure to see all of you. A cast of thousands. We went for quality this afternoon instead of quantity. So my name is Cheryl Nason, and Lori and I have been friends for a long time. I did a television show in Arlington that was called Conversations Cafe, and Lori used to be a guest. I don't know how many of her books we've talked about, but we've talked about a lot of them. So we know each other very well. And when she was talking about this event that's happening this weekend, she said, would you come down and do an interview with me? And I said, wow, thank you, I'd love to, because I love to talk to her, and I really enjoy interviewing authors. So here we are in the Twilight Playhouse with Twilight, Texas creator, Lori Wilde. Give her a hand. Yes, good, good. And we want to thank Peggy. Where is Peggy in the house? Where's Peggy?
She'll be here in a minute.
She'll be here in a minute?
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank Peggy Purser-Freeman, for pulling all of this together. She has really just done so much work, and we just both want to say thank you. You got a good story about Peggy. She was actually your first critique partner. You want to tell the story?
Well, when I started trying to write all my whole life I've been writing as a kid, but when I decided I was going to do it or die trying, I decided to get serious about it. It was like 1990, and there was a writers group in Cleveland at the time that was a really good group, really well-respected group. So they did it was a multi-genre, and I was trying to write romance. So I drive over there I was living in Weatherford at the time, and I drove, well, maybe that's when I was living, no, it wasn't. I was living on the river. I was living out on the river between Weatherford and Granbury off 51, and so I drove to Cleveland to meet with that writers group, and there was people in there writing all kinds of serious literature, and there was some mystery writers and some Western writers, and I was about the only romance writer, and we were going around the table introducing ourselves, and on the far side of the table Peggy was another romance writer. And at the time I was really, really shy, and it was out of my comfort zone to even go to something like this, but I really wanted to be a writer really bad, so I went. And in the break, Peggy comes over and said, do you want to be a critique partner? So I started driving. Peggy was living in Alvarado at the time, and I'd drive from out the river over to Alvarado, and we would critique. And because of the distance, we didn't last in a critique group a real long time, but I learned a whole lot from Peggy. And over the years, we kind of drifted apart because Peggy started writing children's literature, and she dropped out of a lot of the groups that I was in, so I kind of lost contact with her. And I was thinking about her a couple of years ago, and I thought, well, I wonder whatever happened to Peggy. And so now with social media, I just went on Facebook and typed her name in, and there she was. And so I emailed her, and she hadn't realized, because I had a name change, that I was what I'd done. So she started reading my books, and she got the idea for this weekend, and I was just really, truly honored to be asked to do this. So I hope my love of Granbury comes through in my books, even though I've changed the name to Twilight. I thank you.
Let's talk about that. How did you decide to make Granbury Twilight?
Well, like I said, I lived here for 8 years, just down on the river off 51. And whenever we had a choice of going to Weatherford or Granbury, we would always come to Granbury because it just had so much character and color, and there was more fun things to do here than Weatherford. So I live in Weatherford now. Sorry, Weatherford. Sorry if anybody here's from Weatherford, but I always enjoyed it. And I always said if I was going to write a community-based series, I was going to put it in Granbury, and that was my first series that I did for HarperCollins. It was a community-based series, and I changed the name to Twilight because for fictional reasons. If you want to put something where it's not in real life, or like I used Rinky Tinks. I actually used the real ice cream parlor, and then it went out of business. So that's the danger if you use a real place. So if you fictionalize it with different names, then you can kind of move stuff around to where it suits your story.
That's also a literary license, right?
Right.
You've written, and I was surprised. I mean, I knew that you had been writing for a long time, and I knew you'd written quite a few books, but I did not realize that you'd written 70 popping my plosives on this microphone. How many of those books are Twilight-based books, Lori?
Well, when I first started the Twilight series, the thing about series, it can help build readers, and you can really grow really quickly by writing a series as opposed to writing standalone books. But my publisher was a little worried that if I committed to too many books in a series, that if the series didn't do any well, it'd take my career. So as soon as I did the 4-book in the Twilight Texas series, she said, well, move on to another series. Well, in the meantime, as the books come out, you write them and they don't come out for like a year or 18 months. It takes a while for the books to come out. So by the time the books came out, they did really well, and I hit the New York Times list with the Twilight book was my first time I hit the New York Times list with the First Love Cookie Club. And so by then the Twilight stories were doing really well, so then they asked me to do some novellas. So I did the first 4 books, and then I did 3 novellas that were originally published just online, and then they put them all together in a volume called the Christmas Cookie Collection, which came out this past Christmas. And so then they asked, when Peggy came up with the idea for this event, my publisher asked me, they said, well, can you write a novella really quick? Because Peggy approached me in like October, and she wanted to do it for Valentine's Day. And my publisher said, well, can you write a novella for Valentine's Day? And I was like, I was in the middle of a book. I was actually in the middle of the book that comes out this Christmas. And so I had to set that aside, write the novella real quick. Well, I thought it was going to be real quick. It was supposed to take 2 weeks, and I didn't have an idea for it, so it ended up taking a month to write it because I didn't have an idea and I had to come up with something. So that's why right now it's only an ebook, but it will be in print in March. So, but I just want to say that the e-novella that's out now, my publisher has donated copies, and the proceeds of those sales are going to go to Ruth's Place. And we'll be doing the signing at 3 o'clock or 3:30 over at Divine Wine. So if you buy a copy of that ebook, all the money goes to Ruth's Place. So we just want to say that. So right now there's 4, to answer your question, there's 4 novels in the Twilight Texas series, 4 novellas, and then there will be a new book, Christmas at Twilight, this Christmas. So thanks.
And we're going to be back in December to do a Christmas event around the new book, right? Yeah?
Well, the reason Peggy wanted it Valentine's Day, and she said, let's go, she wanted it like a trial run to see how this was going to work. So we thought Valentine's Day would be a good time, we would play off the weekend, and to see how it's going to work. So this is our sort of our trial run, our beta testing. So if there's anything that you think can be done better, please let us know, because we are going to do it at big at Christmas. And we're going to have people in costumes and acting out the characters. A lot of the people in the stores weren't really aware of who I was, so they had to start reading the books, and now they're like, oh, okay, we can get into it now. So we're just getting this off the ground. So thank you all for attending and supporting this. I really do appreciate you guys.
Well, it's always, I think, wonderful when you have the opportunity to come down and do something like this, and money will go to a charity like this one, because it's really, when it's something local like this, I think it's terrific. This is such a wonderful town. I've not been to Granbury in a very, very long time, and so this has really renewed my interest in the community. And one of the things that I think you're all hoping will happen is that it will increase the interest of people in the Dallas-Fort Worth area who are within driving distance, and increase the tourist business. I mean, who doesn't want more business, right? Yeah. No applause for that? Come on.
I just want to say that when Peggy approached me about this, it wasn't for me to sell more books. That really wasn't my intention. My intention was to help, because I love Granbury and I want to see it thrive. My intention was to help bring people into the stores on the square in Granbury, because the square is really special. It's unique, and I don't know, people that live here probably may not realize how unique that it is. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to write about it, because of the uniqueness of it. And so I donated all the books that are being given away at the visitor center. If you didn't get one, get over there and get a free book, because I donated books from my other series so that you can have a book, because I really just want this town to thrive.
I want to talk a minute about your process, because I don't think people who are not authors, you see so many people who say, oh, I can write a book. Well, your process and what you go through to write each book is very interesting. And I think you'll be very surprised at how this really works. Lori doesn't just sit down and dash this off. She does a lot more than that, and there's a lot more involved in this. I've interviewed so many authors, and a lot of them have different processes. Writing is not like you think it is. It's like doing an interview. It's not like you think it is from the outside. It's like seeing the top of an iceberg and not realizing that there is all this underneath. So would you sort of take us through a brief description of your process? Because I know it's really big. So see if you can make it kind of smaller.
Well, originally, what I start off with characters. Some authors are plot-driven where they think of the plot first, and some authors are character-driven. Most romance authors are character-driven because the characters are what matter most to us. More action thrillers may be more plot-driven. So I start off with a character, and I do like a psychological profile of my character because I think psychology is important for you to understand why the character is the way they do. So I do a psychological profile, and then what I do is I make so that I can get into this world. Like when I set it in a real town, and I set my all my community-based series are all in real towns. I go to the town and I look around, and there's my research. It's just right there, and the people I talk to and the people I meet. Now, I never base a character on a single person. You know, I might use a trait from somebody that I've picked up, but I don't base it on a single person. So that's what I do. Is I go. That's how I research the town. Then I will make a playlist musical playlist based on the characters and the theme of the book. So I will have a theme, and so when I'm looking for songs, I don't pick songs that I like, I pick songs that fit the book. So I will thematically type themes into a search engine on Spotify and start listening to the songs. And if the songs suits my characters, then I put them on my playlist, and so I listen to them while I write the book, so that's to draw me into the story. So a lot of times if I don't like the song at the beginning of the book, I'll like it at the end because it becomes the song for that book and those characters. Then I will also pick a scent that represents that book, and it will usually relate to the time of the year, or so at Christmas, you know, I have all the Christmas smells, the pine and the cinnamon and that sort of thing in the stories. And then I burn candles while I play. I burn candles and I listen to the music, and then I make a visual of the place. I will have the characters, what I think they look like, and images that represent the story, and I put it on Pinterest. So if anybody ever wants to just go check out the book that I'm working on, it'll be on Pinterest. You can follow me on Pinterest and see the visuals of the book that I'm working on, and I'll have that up on a separate computer screen so that I can look at that, and I listen to the music, and I burn the scent, and it brings me into the world really quickly because I write so fast. I have so many books a year that I have to get into the story immediately. I can't just lollygag around. So when I do those things, it puts me immediately in that world.
See, not what you thought, right? Does anybody out there, it's such an intimate group, I can't believe you guys didn't sit here. You're back there, I know. Does anybody have a question that they'd like to ask Lori? I mean, we're, a hand. Now you have to say loud enough so we can hear you, and so stand up.
Well, Lori, I actually graduated with you.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh.
Back in years and years ago. Who was your English teacher that influenced you to write?
Oh my gosh. I can't believe I didn't remember his name. Yes, I'm having one of those moments. But honestly, I did have a great English teacher there in Weatherford College. Weatherford High School. It was my dad, honestly, who got me to write. And I'm probably going to choke up on this one. My dad was a journalist, and he would always read stories to me from the time I was a little kid. And in my book, The First Love Cookie Club, there's a scene where the father reads to his little girl who's sick, and reads to his little girl Jazzy, and she. My father would always read. I guess he was doing it to aggravate me. Maybe he was doing it to educate me. He'd always read the fly page, which would be copyright date, published such and such, New York, the street. He would always read the whole thing. And I'd go, Daddy, because he would do it every time. And I put that in the book in The First Love Cookie Club. So that did come from real life. So my father was actually my inspiration in why I write. In fact, I was a daddy's girl, and my dad always wanted to write fiction, and he always wanted these perfect words, and he would sit there and he would try to write, and the word wouldn't come out. Even though he's a journalist and he knew how to produce in that regard, as far as fiction went, he was waiting for some strike from above or something, and he would write one page and throw it away, and write a page and throw it away, and he never got the story written. Well, when a few years ago he told me, he said, I never really realized it till I saw you do it. He said, you just sit down and write. And I thought, well, how else do you do it? But he thought it was you had to have something magical, and you really don't. You just have to do it. Yeah.
And that's really the hardest part, is that you have to sit down and you have to do it. I've written a fiction book. It's one of those 300-page works of fiction that's in the bottom drawer of your nightstand. You know, nobody will ever publish it. But it gives me a different understanding and a different insight into what this is like. And having had the opportunity to talk to so many different authors, it's just so interesting to listen to the creative process. And I'm sure if I had a chance to interview artists, painters, and sit down and talk to them about how does your work come to life, that you would be amazed at that creative process. But you have to sit down and do it. Do you write every day?
Well, I write every day except for days like today. Except for when I'm touring and going out on the road. I have friends that actually write when they tour and are on the road, but it's really kind of difficult for me because I'm such an introvert by nature that I really have to like pump up to be on. And it's a different mindset. It's using a different part of my brain to write as it does to do this. So when I'm doing this, it's hard for me to switch back and forth. But when I get home, as soon as I get back home, I'll get right back into the book and go again because I've got a deadline April 15th and I just started the book. So yeah, that's quick. I write a book usually in about 2 months. So.
Which is quick. Many authors do one a year. Yeah, it's interesting. Anybody else got a question? Okay, stand up, please.
Have you always written that quickly, or when you first got started, did it take a lot longer? Did you have to find your groove and how you did it?
Oh, yes, I have a story about that. My first book took me 18 months to write. I did not know how to plot, so I just sat down and wrote. Now, that was what they call seat of the pantser, or pantser, if you ever hear that term. I would just sit down and write, not know where I was going, and I'd go up one blind alley and throw it away and start again. And my first book took 17 drafts and 18 months to write. My second book took 15 months to write, and maybe it was 12 drafts, so I was getting a little better. Well, I sold that second book. So by the time I got a publisher, and they were telling me they would like more books for me a year if I could do it, and I also realized that I was writing for Harlequin. They were those little short books. That they only earn out, if you're lucky, about $10,000. So if you want to make a living doing this, well, what does that tell you? You got to write at least about 3 a year just to, scrape by. So I thought, well, I got to get faster if I got to write 3 a year, so what am I going to do? So I learned how to plot. And I wrote my third book in 72 days. So I went from 18 months to 15 months to 72 days. So now I can write a book in 2 months, a first draft, and that first draft is pretty well clean, and it's going to be how the book is going to be. Now I will send it to my editor. She will send it back for revisions. At that point, her revisions are usually, like this one character, this one book I just got back, the Christmas at Twilight book, and she says, does this character have to die? And I went, yep, gotta die. She said, well, if she has to die, can we, soften it some? I said, yeah, I can do that, but yes, she has to die. So they let me do what I think is right for the story. And when she just emailed me yesterday, and she said, yeah, that worked out. I understand now why you did it. Yes, that works. So somebody dies in the next one.
Oh dear. The characters become real for you, don't they? I mean, they walk, they talk, you see them, I mean, they don't have the faces of Tom Cruise or, somebody like that. They're like real people for you, aren't they?
Well, actually, yes, because they're right here in the audience right now. Y'all want to see them? You want to see some characters? You want to see the character of my first book did the New York Times bestseller list? Okay, y'all, come up. Come on, Travis and and Sadie and Jazzy. Is Jazzy there? Does Jazzy want to come up? Come on. See, y'all didn't know they were real, did you? Yeah, I was really, so Granville always holds a special place in my heart. I'm going to choke up again because it was my first New York Times bestseller. This is Travis when he was young and had his wild ways. And this is Sadie and Travis older, and this is Jazzy and Frozen in Time. So see, they're here. Thank you, guys.
I didn't know we were doing that. That was perfect.
That was impromptu.
I know, I love it. Anybody else got a question?
Yeah, come on.
Really?
Yeah, Cheryl's going here. You can ask. Your shot.
There's apparently.
And I'm supposed to be there.
Well, that's true. But we have to. What time is it? How much time have we got?
2:20.
Oh, we got plenty.
Oh, we got plenty of time.
Good.
Were you going to do
We're
something?
going to get thrown out.
Yeah, they've got a matinee that starts at 3, so we have to finish by 2:45. So we don't want to impinge on the real play back here with our fun stuff up here. Were you going to have the hunks come up? Was that something else you wanted to do? That was the. I kind of agree. Don't listen, Ernest. Don't. You've got some other books that are not Twilight books. I have to say that I don't know how many of your books I've read, because one of the things that I would always do as an interviewer is read the book cover to cover. Now, many interviewers don't do that, but I don't see how you can possibly talk to an author about their fictional characters and about their fictional city if you, as the interviewer, don't have a clue. So I would always read her books. So one of the things, and I've said this to Lori herself, and I say this every time we talk about this, I've watched her progress as an author. Remember, I knew her when she first started doing this, and I've watched her characters deepen. I've watched her plots become more complex and more interesting. And I've watched her become a better writer. She was always a good storyteller, but I've watched her become a really, really good writer. And the things that she's doing now, I told her, I said, this last book of yours that I read, this is the best job you've done with depth of character and your plot. So you're really doing, I see you grow. And for me, that's been lots of fun, and it's been very exciting because I really like you as a person. Do you have any advice? I mean, I know that there have to be some people in the audience who are thinking, I'd like to be a writer, or I'd like to do something like Lori does. Do you have any advice for them?
Well, that one's easy. Sit down and write, just like with my dad. That's the first step. And you're going to look at, when you're beginning, you're going to look at this and say, how do I do this? I don't know how. Well, nobody knows how in the beginning. You just do it, You just write, and then it's not good enough, and then you write another one, and you write another one, and you write another one until you do. Now, I did sell the second book I ever wrote, but I did, before that, I wrote 60 short stories, and I had 60 short stories rejected. And a lot of people would have kept giving up. And that's it, you just have to write and not give up. And like Cheryl says, that I've been, and I consider that a great compliment, and thank you very much, that she's noticed my work getting deeper and deeper. But I always, with every book, try to get better. I try to raise the bar for myself in some way. I mean, I could coast along, but I wouldn't be happy, and I would be bored. And if I'm bored, you're going to be bored as a reader. So I always try to find a new way, and I never stop learning. I never stop, trying new techniques, trying new different ways. In the beginning, I had no idea how layered and how much depth there is to writing, that there's so much to it that you can never learn it all. And I could keep writing, until I'm 90 and never learn it all. And that's one of the awesome things about writing. I think it's almost any creative endeavor. You just keep finding different places. And I have people say, well, aren't you afraid you're going to run out of ideas? And it's no, I'm not afraid of that at all, because the more I write, the more ideas come to me, the more things I find, and the bigger my world grows. And when I go out to events like this and I meet people and they talk to me and they tell me about their life, and I'm a little thief, I steal bits and pieces of it. And you never know when you're going to turn up in a book and in what way. You know, it's not going to be you in your life. It's not going to be like that. But it may be a little piece of story that you told me, you know, and about yourself. Or it's just going to be a little, maybe you told me a name of a place, and I'm like, I like that name. I'm going to steal that. So yeah, watch out, because I might pick your brain, and I might run away with a little piece of it. But I will put it in my book, and I will do my best to honor you with that, so that when you read my work, you'll stumble across it and you're like, she's talking about me. I remember telling her that story. That character won't be you, but that piece of her or him will be. So you better watch out when you talk to me. And I never know where it's going to come from either. I just listen to you. I don't write it down. I just listen to you and let it go in my head. I don't really make a conscious decision to take it. It's just you talk to me, and then one time I'm writing and I'll need something, and suddenly it's like, somebody told me about that, you know, and then I'll remember it, and it'll trigger the memory, and it'll go in the book. And it's amazing how that comes to me when I need it, and it's just there. So thank you all for talking to me. Thank you all for sharing parts of yourself to me, because I will steal it from you. Not your ideas, not your stories, but you know, I'm not going to plagiarize anybody, but whatever is part that you've shared with me, I will use it. I take it and use it, and I will try to use it in a way that honors you.
What about creative writing classes, and what about critique groups and writers groups? And I've talked to so many authors who depend, especially when they're just beginning. You know, it's very hard to be objective about your own work and to look at what you've done and to say, okay, this is good, and you hand it to somebody else and they go, well, wait a minute, this is not as good as you think it is. So are creative writing classes good ways to start? Is a writer's group or a critique group something that you would recommend?
In the very beginning, I don't recommend a critique group, because you're too raw, you're too new, and if you show your work to somebody too soon, they can crush you, because in the beginning you just had this tiny little flame, you know, flame of hope that you can do this. And if you show it to somebody too soon and they step on it, because there's those people out there that will do it, it can crush you and it can kill the flame. So I think there are times for critique group though. It's when your flame's gone up a little more, and you're a little more confident, and you've actually put together a whole story maybe, instead of just showing them bits and pieces. And then I think a critique group can be helpful, because, you know, you're writing, you don't know anything. What do you know? Somebody can say, hey, did you know that, you know, you've got 10 points of view on this one first page, and you'll go, point of view, what's that? And then somebody will tell you. So there is time to join a critique group, and I think that's after you've written a little bit and you've gotten a little bit going, and then somebody can help you and direct you. And you also have to be careful in critique groups that you don't start writing to committee, because that can happen too. You want to find a critique group where they let you be you. They don't try to stop the way that you use words. And what they try to do is help, you know, you get better, rather than tell you how to write. You don't want that. Writers' conferences are great. I think everybody should go, save up and go. You know, if you have, you know, find a way to save up the money, because you will meet editors and agents and other writers, and you will just enjoy being in the environment of people talking. And I know the Writer's Block, there's some people here from the Writer's Block, which is Peggy's writers group in Granbury, and you guys understand that, what that's like to be able to go and meet with people. Now the publishing world is changing. I don't know where it's going to end up. You know, it's a very different world, but the bottom line still has been and always will be, it's about the book. You have to write a good book. So it doesn't matter what form our publishing world is going in, whether it's online or print publishing still exists. Who knows what's going to happen with that, but what matters always and forever is the story.
I think you bring up something that I find particularly interesting, and that is the way that the publishing industry is morphing. Because, I mean, I confess, I still like to feel that book. You know, I still like to turn those pages myself. I'm not an electronic person, but that's because I grew up with those books in my hands, and I'm a kinesthetic learner. So touching the book and the pages feels important for me. But with all of the online publishing, all of the e-books, how is that what do you think? I mean, where do you think publishing is really going? I know at one point in time, you and I had talked about this, and you talked about the advantages of the ebook publishing world for the author.
For the first time ever, authors have power. They never had power before. It was all up to the publisher. You sent a manuscript up there, they threw it in a closet, and then when the stack got this high, they'd pull them out and they'd get some little person that's going to college and as their little assistant to read it. And they would read the first 5 pages, and if it, or maybe even the first page, and if it didn't interest them, it'd go in an envelope and send it back to you. And that was how it went. And if you wrote something that was different and that didn't fit in with how New York saw things, then you weren't going to get published by New York. The reason why is they spend a lot of money and they need a big lot of audience. And if what you've written is a little niche book that's only going to appeal a certain amount of people, no matter how well it's written, they're not going to publish it. They can't make enough money on it. Because before they ever buy a book, they take it to a committee. The editor has, if she wants to buy a book, she has to fill out a profit and loss statement about how she thinks you can make money off. They can make the money off the book. She takes it to the committee, and if the committee does not agree, that book does not get bought, no matter how well it's written. And that's why you hear about really great authors that get rejected again and again and again and again, because nobody has the vision to see how they can make money off of it. And I know we've all experienced this. You pick a book and you don't think the writing's very well, so why did they buy this and why is it a bestseller? Well, because there's something about the book that appeals to a large enough audience that they sell it. You know? So e-publishing has given authors power, especially authors who have written something that doesn't fit into the masses. And they can go online and they can publish it and make plenty of money all by themselves. But the thing of it is, the downside of that, because there's always a downside to everything, is that authors put their books up before they're ready. And if your book is not good enough, because your book still has to be New York quality, if you hope to sell it, it still has to be well written. So now you have power. You can write and sell, and you don't need New York if you don't want them. You don't need a publisher anymore. You can become a publisher, but you have to make darn sure that book is New York quality. And you can do that by learning how to write better and to, I don't know, is that even correct? I never claimed to be a grammar person, to my dad's dismay. I studied nursing, but you hire an editor if you have to, and you hire somebody to make your cover, and you hire somebody to format the book, and you make that the best book that you can be. And if you do that, then you can compete with New York just as well and make more money doing that than you could going into print publishing. So the reason I'm still with print publishing is I like being in bookstores. Most of my readers still buy print as opposed to ebooks. My publisher has ponied up and offered me, a very lucrative deal, but I think the reason I got such a lucrative deal is because they were afraid that I could just go off and self-publish. So it has really been a boon for writers and readers as well, because readers are getting cheaper and cheaper books. Now, what that means for publishing in the long term will, 10 years from now, the big 6 still be there, because now there's only 6 big publishers left in the world, just 6. At one time, there were hundreds,
Everybody's a subsidiary.
Yes, everybody's a subsidiary. Like Random House is the biggest, it's 50%, but Random House owns Bantam, Dell, Penguin, Putnam, so it's one company owns all these. HarperCollins is the only one I think that doesn't own a big bunch of other people. So, well, actually they bought Avon, but it's changing. And so I have heard somebody say that in the future there's only going to be the big 3, Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon. So there's something to that.
I agree with you.
Well, this is sort of the middle of the weekend. And so, are you waving that we need to stop? Okay, one more thing and then we'll quit. This is sort of the middle of the weekend. So there are some other events that if people who are here with us now would like to continue to have an opportunity to perhaps meet you and chat with you, etc., let's let them know where else they can do that and what else is on the agenda.
Yeah, we've got the book signing. Is it at 3:30 over at Divine Wine. I have bought wine, so there's free wine as long as it lasts. And we're gonna, and chocolate. Oh, I gotta go. My husband get the chocolate out of the car. So we've got free wine and chocolate. And if you buy an ebook, all the money proceeds go to Ruth's Place, the great charity. So I encourage you to come to that. Then we're having the pizza, kind of a little light buffet over at Farina's, which is pasta papas in the book. But you're welcome to come over there. The hunks will be there, and you need to sign up or let them know that you're going to come over there, because that's free as well. So I'm paying for that. So we have to cap the number. So if you guys want to sign up, you can go over to there and meet the punks. And then we got a ghost tour tonight. We're going to come to the Sweater Curse at 7:30. Cheryl and I and my husband and I will be there. And then we're going to go to the ghost tour. So we have a big evening ahead. And then tomorrow we've got some more events if anybody's still in town for tomorrow. Yeah, I'm going to go to the Presbyterian Church. Most of my books take place in the Presbyterian Church. So I'm going to go to services there, and then I'm going to be at the bridal show giving away free books. So if you're still in town tomorrow, come to the bridal show. You get free books at the bridal show. That's my Wedding Bell Wishes series. And then we're going to have a tea at the Iron Horse Inn at 3. So got a lot of stuff going on.
Well, we don't want to infringe on the Playhouse. They've got a performance this afternoon. We'd like to thank you so much for coming out, and Lori's looking forward to meeting you. And Twilight, Texas, we'll see you at Christmas.